If you've shopped for a new personal laptop recently, you've probably noticed a quiet yet sharp increase at checkout. This animated chart tracks consumer tech prices. Notice the flat line suddenly tilting upward mid-year, reflecting an 18% jump for MacBooks and a 20% hike for iPads. A global memory chip shortage is driving these price increases. As AI data centers absorb the global silicon supply, consumer electronics manufacturers are left competing for a diminishing pool of parts. The race to build machine intelligence requires staggering amounts of physical hardware. The hidden cost of pulling that silicon out of the market is being passed directly to anyone buying an everyday device. The destination for all those missing chips are multi-billion-dollar warehouse-scale data centers currently breaking ground across the globe. Look at this bar chart comparing historical tech infrastructure spending. The towering column on the right represents the $725 billion tech companies are currently spending on raw compute and the electrical power to run it. This physical bottleneck was anticipated by hardware suppliers, positioning their companies to absorb the massive surge in demand. Silicon Valley is constructing the most expensive physical network ever attempted. To justify that scale of upfront capital, the eventual software returns have to be astronomical. That required return is what Sequoia Capital identified as the $600 billion question ticking away at the center of the industry. This scale visualizes the immediate problem. On one side sits the $725 billion infrastructure spend. On the other, the actual revenue generated by all AI software combined, a mere $75 billion. This massive deficit creates a strict timeline. The tech industry has to find a way to make training these models dramatically cheaper, or figure out how to sell them for significantly more before the capital dries up. OpenAI chose to chase consumer adoption. While their flagship product draws in 900 million weekly users, the vast majority pay nothing, generating massive compute costs for every free query answered. Years earlier, their former VP of Research, Dario Amodei, recognized a terrifying pattern in how these systems learned. This graph plots scaling laws. As you increase model size, data, and compute, the system's intelligence rises exponentially. Tracking milestones shows the speed of evolution. In 2019, it barely wrote a fake headline. By 2023, it passed the bar exam and wrote code. Realizing this trajectory would continue indefinitely, Amodei left to form Anthropic. He structured it as a public benefit corporation, overseen by a long-term benefit trust holding no stock, ensuring the board could optimize for safety, even if it meant burning cash. Instead of bleeding capital on free public access, Anthropic prioritized a cautious, structured approach designed to weather the industry's financial volatility. The standard method for keeping these massive models safe relies on armies of human raters reviewing answers one by one. It is a slow, expensive process that ultimately absorbs the personal biases of the human labelers. Anthropic bypassed human moderation entirely by developing constitutional AI. This flowchart breaks down the automated process. The model generates a draft response, compares it against a rigid document of predefined ethical principles, and then self-corrects its own output to align with the rules before delivering a final answer. That verifiable safety attracted the exact market needed to close the revenue gap. Large businesses began building their infrastructure on Anthropic, signing enterprise contracts averaging $120,000 a year, roughly 15 times the spend of a standard commercial account. A viral consumer app brings immediate attention, but highly reliable, self-governing models lock in the lucrative, long-term corporate revenue required to actually offset the enormous cost of computing power. But the assumption that continuous intelligence requires continuous spending was suddenly challenged by a breakthrough that redefined training costs completely. While standard state-of-the-art models routinely demand a towering $100 million to train, a new competitor named DeepSeek achieved similar performance for just $5.5 million. They accomplished this by heavily optimizing their software architecture, using techniques like mixture of experts to route queries only to the necessary parts of the network, bypassing the need for brute force silicon. DeepSeek's efficiency shifts the math of the AI race. It suggests that algorithmic innovation can bypass the requirement for massive, multi-billion-dollar hardware budgets. To understand the trajectory of these massive investments, we have to look back at the financial frenzy of the late 1990s. During the dot-com boom, telecom companies poured billions into laying extensive networks of fiber optic cable, only to discover that 97% of it had no immediate demand, leaving it dark underground. The market punished that immediate overspend with a severe crash. Yet decades later, those exact neglected cables provided the physical bandwidth necessary to launch the modern streaming and mobile internet. The massive outlay for AI mirrors the pattern seen with fiber optics. It represents a heavy, speculative upfront expenditure that builds the physical groundwork for the next era of human technology. As scaling laws move the curve from passing the bar exam to mastering complex engineering tasks, the point where machine capability overlaps with human career paths is accelerating. This intersection of efficiency and power is bringing professional displacement into immediate focus. The speed of this progression led Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of artificial intelligence, to compare his life's work to a man trying to comfort himself after helping construct a nuclear weapon. That anxiety culminated in a joint statement signed by the leaders of the tech industry, explicitly stating that mitigating the risk of human extinction from AI should be treated as a global priority, right alongside pandemics and nuclear war. Despite the massive financial deficits and the warnings from the engineers themselves, the capital continues to flow, pulling us closer to a future shared with autonomous systems highly capable of outthinking their creators. If you found this analysis helpful, please hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives.